Well, a hearty good evening to everybody. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Certainly pleased to have everybody here. It is Tuesday, January 14th, and we'll start our meeting by introducing you to your City Council.
Council members Aguilar.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Entman. Erpenbach.
Here.
Jameson.
Here.
Karski.
Here.
Rolfing. Staggers.
Present.
Very good. Thank you so much. We are very, very blessed to have back with us Pastor Phil Tagg of the Ransom Church. Pastor Phil, we've missed you a little bit. It's good to have you back. And Pastor is going to lead us in our invocation, lead us in prayer. What we'd ask you to do is to stand, and then after that blessing is received, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Phil, thank you for being here.
Let's pray. Father God, it is a privilege to be here tonight, and Lord, as I drove over and I drove by so many people on the streets and driving their cars, and I thought of this meeting and how the job of the people around this circle is to represent. And I just pray for your blessing upon that representation, that you would help them represent well, that you would help them represent accurately to their constituents. I pray, Father, that you would help them lead well for the sake of our city, so that so many of us can continue to live the lives that we've been blessed to live in this great place. I just pray your blessing upon this night in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Councilor Enneman, welcome as well. Good to have you here. Thank you. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Council, any motions or changes?
Move to approve, Anderson.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve our consent agenda, and it was seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, I'd like to pull two items. The first one would be water resources investigation for $53,445. And then the digital aerial orthophotography services at $122,143.
Very good. Councilor Staggers has asked that two items be pulled from the consent agenda for additional discussion. One involving water resources, another one digital area photography, and we'll certainly do that. Council, any other motions or changes? Very good. Let's vote then on all of the items except for those two. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson.
Yes.
Entman.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. We're now going to move on to our regular agenda. Council, any changes?
Move for approval, Anderson. Second, Rolf.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve these items tonight, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson.
Yes.
Entman.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Folks, it's a great opportunity for you to engage your council. If you'd like to, just come on forward. We'd ask you to just limit your comments to 5 minutes or less and just introduce yourself to the people of our town. Well, very good. We still welcome you, and we're going to introduce you later, so don't leave. Thank you. Well, then, Councilor Staggers, let's move to your two items, if you don't mind.
Okay,
Would
sure.
you read the first one, please?
That is the water resource investigation for $53,445.
Very good. Councilor Staggers, you have a question of Mark?
Basically, Mark, can you just explain this in a little more detail?
Certainly. Thanks for asking. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. This is a long-term partnership that we've had with the USGS. I know that it's coded under our water fund, but it's actually, this expense is split between three of the divisions of Public Works. $27,000 comes from the water fund. Nearly $13,000 of this expense will come from the storm drainage fund, and about $13,000 comes from the water rec fund. One of the things that's happened, and this has been several years back, is as funding levels have dropped for the USGS, some of the functions and expertise that they provide are critical to us from a flood control standpoint, a precipitation gauge standpoint. And so we entered into agreement several years back and have had this partnership that we fund about 55% of the operating expenses for us to have a series of river gauges on the Big Sioux River and Skunk Creek throughout the city and as it leaves. We also have a number of precipitation gauges, and also we monitor the water levels in the aquifer. So the expense initially is about $53,445. We do get half of that granted back to us throughout the course of the year. And so the true expense will end up being $26,722.50. It's critical for us to have these stream gauges to manage the city resources and to gauge if there's a flood threat, and we would ask for your support.
Okay, so we have the federal government, you said, providing some funding here too.
That's right.
Is that right? Okay, and we've been doing this, I assume now, year after year after year after year. Is that right?
We have. I don't know the full history, but as long as I've been here, which is just over 7 years, we've been participating and partnering with them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Stegers, thank you. The second item, and then, or should we vote on this one first?
I would say
you prefer that, Council?
I would move to approve that item.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Urbanbach's made a motion to approve that, this item, and then it was seconded by Councilor Entenmann. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson.
Yes.
Entenmann.
Yes.
Urbanbach.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing. Staggers.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. The second item, please.
Is the 2014 digital aerial orthophotography for $122,143.
Councilor Staggers?
Yeah. Can you explain what's going on here?
Certainly. Every 3 years, we fly the city, not only the city limits, but the projected growth areas, which will be about 200 square miles. This gives us really good, as the mapping team at GIS would say, it gives you down to 3-inch pixelation. And so much better than what we can get out on any free site, if you will. Every week, City Council looks at all the various maps for growth area. Also, just about every department of the city utilizes it for emergency response and just a wide range of activities inside city government. But I would also tell you that commercial brokers, realtors, just a wide array of local businesses also use the updated photography. The amount of growth and development that's happening in Sioux Falls, 3 years is really on the outside of how often we want to fly the city. I would also tell you that in addition to this contract, the Minnehaha County expects to also fly their county. They've just approved their contract with this same firm, and their number, I won't quote it, but they're going to fly all of their county outside this boundary, and so those growing towns can also have very good, accurate aerial mapping.
Yeah, I guess my question now is that you mentioned, of course, there are a lot of free sites where you can get photography. Well, granted, this should be a lot better. We're going to pay $122,000, but I don't know. I guess my inclination is that many of those free sites could provide us with adequate information.
I think Councilor Wood, for certain activities, like, for example, Google Maps in some cases is only within 2 meters. This becomes 3 inches. One of the key activities that we do every day is locate utilities for whether it's water, wastewater, storm, sewer, lights. And a lot of times we have maps that have measurements off curbs. And so when our locating teams go out, and I mean, we have thousands and thousands of one calls every year, whether you're putting in a fence, putting in a house, those teams greatly rely on good, accurate data. And, you know, the house that gets built this year will ultimately potentially put in a fence next year, and they'll call in for one call locates, and we've got to have really good, accurate background information so they can go out there and go, all right, 8 feet off the back of this curb is a water main. They need to mark that. So, again, just in some cities, I think you could go longer than 3 years. In the city of Sioux Falls, and as robust as it is here, I would not recommend going any longer than 3 years. And so, again, I would ask for your support.
If I could just ask one other question. Granted, yeah, we're growing leaps and bounds, especially on the south side. And, so why don't we just do those areas instead of the whole city?
You know, when you
and limit the cost.
You know, I would, by the time you would segregate some of those areas off, I would say just with the updated cameras, it would be better to fly the entire area. They have a very prescribed pattern. You also have the opportunity to capture the Costco's, the infill areas that have occurred over time that weren't there 3 years ago. That if we only say flew the boundary, we're not going to capture everything that we need to. So,
Very good. Council, with your permission, Mark, you had mentioned that public entities can get access to this too. Could you explain to the council and to me as well and the public, how do they get access to this information?
yeah, right now, if you go onto the city's website, siouxfalls.org, you go into Public Works, GIS, and there's an interactive GIS site. And there's many people that use that site every day because they know that it's 3-inch pixelation. So it's very accurate, and they can use it just, you know, similar to tonight when they updated the election maps to find out where you can. The presentation was that the GIS team did for the city council. You can now type in your address, and it immediately takes you to the district that you're in, who your representative is. All those tools first have to have a good foundation before you can have that service to the public. But SiouxFalls.org, interactive GIS, and people call the team, they buy maps, they put them up in their offices. There's a number of people.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
I'll just say I do support this, Mark. Basically, in my district, about 1.5 years ago, you helped resolve a safety issue where some ladies were living in an area that GIS or at the GIS on our emergency vehicles were not able to find this location. And it happened several times. And only because we had an updated GIS done right around that time that I brought it up to Mark, were we able to identify that area for the fire and police and then mark that area with street signs because it's so interacted with a private area, Cactus Heights at the time. So I do think this is something that is needed not only just for our departments, but as a safety factor. There's so many new streets going in that we just don't know where everything's at, and this helps us find those.
Councilor Anderson, Jr., would you mind making a motion?
I'll move to approve. Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Anderson, Jr. has made a motion to approve that, and it was seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, I was just going to, the thought just crossed my mind, Mark. You know, we have GPS system and so forth. I mean, isn't that, well, to me that also seems very adequate too. Instead of having to necessarily have all these maps.
They are in those.
Isn't that what the Call One system really relies on? Is GPS?
Call One, like for us, if we ultimately go out there and we'll locate a water main, for example, on hard coordinates, and then when we overlay that with an adjusted image, meaning something that's very tied in, then when our locators go out there, they can actually pull off true reference points, back a curb, fire hydrant, and some of the GPS sites, especially when you get outside the rural areas, they can be sub 5 meters, but that's all really the accuracy you need if you're traveling down the highway. So this is really for the planning and development of a growing city, and again, I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson,
Yes.
Intamin.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
No.
Aguilar.
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Thank you. Item number 8.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations. Engineering, $349,615. Engineering, $4,275,000. And entertainment venues, event center, $2 million.
Mark?
Good evening again, Council. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. We have some dollars to bring forward to you that are available that we'd like to have appropriated so we can put them to work. The first item is the to speak to the additional platting fees that have been collected. If you recall back in, I'm going to probably just direct you to, would you circle this area? I'll direct you down to, we provided all the history back to 2009 when platting fees went into effect. This is the 5th year. But when we started off the year, and again, understanding that trying to be very conservative in the budgets, we started off the year with those budgetary items. It's been a robust construction year. In September, we actually brought an appropriation ordinance for you to appropriate those additional dollars, the additional $725,000, $225,000 of water platting fees for an additional nearly $1 million. Even the end of the year has been very robust and wanting to get those dollars put to work. Tonight, for the first reading, we would ask for your support to appropriate an additional nearly $350,000 worth of arterial street platting fees. Next week, when we adjust the plan for second reading, we would bring in the water platting fees that are non-appropriated funds. But it would give the year total for arterial street platting fees to $1.479 million. So that's the first step of this item tonight.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Mark, let's talk about the arterial street platting fees.
Yes.
Why are they being used on flood control? I thought we had an arterial street agreement.
No, they are
These
not.
are not part of that agreement?
I've got 3 different buckets of dollars tonight to appropriate. So these will be appropriated for streets and only streets. Okay?
The $349,615?
Yes. Yes.
Because here in our red notes, it shows that it's complete remaining flood control structures that are part of the levee system.
Right. Next, I have another slide for flood control. Okay. So the flood control, we were in the process. There's essentially 3 primary phases of fortifying the spillway and raising the levees. That what we call phase 1, which was the spillway. Phase 2, which was down near 229 area up to Skunk Creek, that's phase 2. And then phase 3, we're essentially fortifying the dam up north by 60th Street and raising the diversion channel. That was all 3 projects. So we were wrapping up, getting done, and then ultimately the Corps of Engineers brought a certification team to town to essentially certify that we've completed the work that was in the plans. They've identified several other items that we need to complete before certification can happen. So from the good news of that is we do have dollars in the flood control account. They're just not appropriated to do the remaining structures that the Corps of Engineers have asked us to do. What we did quickly, because we know that this is a hot topic for our community, it's taken us a long time to get to this point. We're fortunate to get paid back from the Corps of Engineers on what we did advance them, but we do have work to do before they'll certify. So on the lower left, it says replace 8 drainage structures. These are essentially pipes that drain neighborhoods through the levee and into the river. When they initially designed the project, they checked them off as okay. When this certification team came through, it's been a period of time. They said they want them replaced. And so that's the most critical project that we need to accomplish. We're going to go to bid letting with that this month. We did accelerate the bid letting so we can get that done. These are using city dollars in the flood control account to accomplish this. but those dollars are not appropriated. So there's two different numbers, and Tracy Turback, Finance Director, is here as well, that we would ask to appropriate $3.25 million and $1.025 million. Those $2 are cash that are currently on hand for flood control that will fund those structure improvements. There's also some more structure improvements that are on the map that's over by Morels. And then last, if there's dollars available, we would recommend to go up north near the diversion channel and clean out some of that silt behind the Lowhead Dam. It'd be a good water quality effort, and it's one of our key initiatives. So tonight, for flood control appropriation, it would be those $2. And then last slide. For the third bucket of dollars, the $2 million Sanford donation. These are dollars that came in per the title sponsor agreement that were specific to enhancing the digital package, which includes the center hung scoreboard, video ribbon board, and the exterior marquee. So those three areas, from arterial street plating fees, flood control, and the donation, is what we would be here tonight to ask for your support to appropriate those dollars, and it is first reading.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
Let's go to the flood control.
Okay.
A few years ago, the council, in their infinite wisdom, passed a resolution to prepay to have this floodplain taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was over $30 million that we forwarded. We did get some of that back from the federal government. Mm-hmm. What's their responsibility in this? What I'm seeing again is that the citizens of Sioux Falls are being asked to pay for something that should be a partnership with that, at the very least, should be a partnership with the Corps of Engineers.
There'll ultimately be a final auditing of the funds. One of the challenges that exists today that we can't have, that number one, the most positive thing here is that the dollars are already in the flood control account. Over time, the relationship we had with the state is that the whole project was 75% federal, 25% local, and then the local share was split between the state and the city. So over time, as we drew up expenses, we would submit essentially an invoice to the state and say if we spent $1, they would send us 50 cents in reimbursement. So that's been part of the funds that's been in this account. Now that this concern came up, and it was in the last quarter of last year that this additional work needed to be done, we approached them and said, well, is the Corps of Engineers going to design and construct this? And this gets into a lot of inside baseball, but essentially Congress set the new project amount for the Big Sioux River levee improvements at $62.5 million. That's a number that cannot, you can't go over it with project funding without Congress raising it. Prior to us, we tried 3 different times. The third time they actually raised it, but that took several years to get it to that point. When we heard about this back in October, the fact that we had funds in the bank, we didn't want to burden community with waiting longer to try to go to Congress and try to raise what they call this 902 limit from $62.5 million upwards to, say, $65 million. And so our best recommendation would be, let's take the dollars that we have in our own city accounts for flood control, and ultimately a majority of this was the reimbursement from the state, and put it to work, replace these 8 drainage structures, and get the certification process going. So truly, the Corps has been a great partner, and I think they would have immediately stepped in and said that they would fund their portion 75-25 if they could, but their hands are tied with this 902 line.
So excuse me. So then basically we're going to pay for this and hope the federal government reimburses us in a later time.
It'll all be determined in a final audit.
Can I get, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Can I just get a yes or no on that, Mark, please? I mean,
I
are
think
they
it's-
going to reimburse us? Are they looking at reimbursing us?
The only way that they would reimburse us, Counselor, is if we went to Congress and raised the project limit.
Yeah.
So I would say it's highly unlikely that they would not reimburse their 75% for this work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So the answer, he wanted a yes and no. It'd be a no.
I would say no.
Counselor?
Yeah,
Yeah, I understood that.
Very good.
yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor Rolfing?
Thank you. So we've been putting money into a fund to build up things, build this up when we get reimbursed from the state over how many years? Forever or for a long time?
You know, this the work for phase 1 started in like 2001.
Right.
Yeah, and there was some initial seed money put in by the city, and then ultimately when we did the advancement, also we knew that we were going to have our local share. So part of the bond was for city expenses.
Okay. How much money do we have in that fund right now, or is this going to drain it down to zero?
This will appropriate all the available funds. Yeah, and our first priority and the key priority is to replace the 8 drainage structures that are circled in the lower left. Yeah.
Counselor Mugg?
I think it's important for us to make it clear to the citizens that none of this money you're talking about is part of that reimbursement that we got from the federal government just recently.
It is not.
This is a completely different conversation. We still have that cash
Completely.
sitting there to do something else.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Enneman?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a no-brainer in a way because this flood project is really a key for a lot of our citizens because of our flood insurance rates have gone up significantly. And I think this council has even asked you, is there a way that we can even expedite Homeland, whatever it is, that has to come in and do the final plotting or the mapping of this stuff?
Right.
Because I think that would be an expense that would be well paid on the part of the city to take some of this burden off of our citizens that have had these significant increases in their flood coverage insurance. So I think that this is a great thing, and I think this is one of the things that we need to go forward with enthusiasm, because I think this is key for our community, quite honestly.
Okay, very good.
Counselor Anderson Jr.?
I don't disagree that this isn't something that we need to do. I'm just disappointed that when the city allocates $32 million to do a floodplain job that the Corps of Engineers tells us needs to be done, and then they come back several years later and change the game plan. That's what I'm disappointed in, and that's what I wanted to find out what was happening here. You know, by those 8 drainage structures being changed, you know, something they approved earlier. They approved them. No. Now they're coming back and saying, no, we're not approving them, and you have to fix them. That's disappointing to me. That's not a partnership.
That's right.
Very good discussion. And folks, this is a first reading, so you don't have the opportunity to engage the council today. We've had some great discussion. Would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, January 21 for this item?
So moved, Rolfing.
Thank you. Councilor Rolfing has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. And again, good discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 9.
First reading an ordinance amending the 2002 revised zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County and the city of Sioux Falls by revising the text pertaining to conditional uses in the RR Rural Residential District and definitions. The joint City Minnehaha County Planning Commissions recommend approval.
Welcome, Jason.
Jason Bieber with Planning and Building Services. This is an ordinance amending the joint zoning regulations for the city of Sioux Falls and the Minnehaha County, essentially to add the definition of foul within our joint jurisdiction and then to allow it by a conditional use permit in the rural residential district with a maximum of 6 foul.
Jason, thank you. If there is no discussion, would anybody want to? Yes, Councilor Rolfing, of course you had to.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
Counselor?
urban ag is
You are
important, right?
You're the expert.
It is, and I'm interested in what the definition of foul is.
I don't have it right on hand. I think that what this ordinance started from was a citizen who keeps chickens and ducks on their specific property. So I'm assuming it includes that. And then at the second reading, Shauna will actually be here to kind of discuss some of the differences between ours and their proposed ordinance.
What about when we would annex them in, or they would come into the city? Will they then be will they be grandfathered in under this one or under the Sioux Falls city ordinance?
I would say they'd probably be grandfathered in under this existing one.
David, can I ask you, do you have an answer on that? Who supersedes who, the county or the city?
I'd have to look at it further.
We'll check into that by the
Please.
by the second reading there, Counselor. Good job. Well, very good.
Move approval, Rolfing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Counselor.
Second.
And seconded by Counselor Anderson Jr. Thank you. Yes.
Just a question, why isn't
Councilor
this
Karski.
being voted on at a joint meeting? Why?
It's part of the joint zoning issue, it's not a separate county or a separate city, but it's a joint zoning in county area.
It's in our MPO.
Okay. It just seems like this is stuff we address at a joint meeting, so.
If I might, it is. That's what we're setting the second reading for, is a joint city-county meeting.
Second reading, thank you. That clears it up.
Counselor Bach, thank you. We do have a motion. It has been seconded. We are setting a date of hearing, and basically we're going to meet with the joint city council and Minnehaha County on Tuesday, January 28th to discuss this item. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Urbanbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 10.
Deferred action from the City Council meeting of 12/10/13, a resolution approving the special assessment rule for construction of grading, gravel, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and asphalt surfacing on West 85th Street from South Louise Avenue to South Minnesota Avenue.
Hello, Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. This is an item we would ask to be withdrawn. This property was in a transition period back when the new plating fees were instituted. It was on an assessment roll. Ultimately, they should have paid plating fees. They have paid plating fees, and so we would remove this assessment roll. We would just ask this entire item to be withdrawn from the council's agenda.
Move to withdraw, Urbanbach.
Second, Anderson.
Counselor Urbanbach's made a motion to withdraw this item, seconded by Counselor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Intiman? Urbanbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 11.
A proposed resolution vacating the public right-of-way on East 49th Street north from 50 feet west of North Cliff Avenue, center line, to east right-of-way line of North 10th Avenue.
All right, council, one further item. This is to simply set the date of hearing for February 11th. This is a street vacation request that's just north of Max Hardware area on North Cliff Avenue. It's 49th Street North. It's currently a grassed area. There's no public utilities in it. It's only a productive piece for a block. As you look at the aerial image, the area to the left is a drainage channel that we recently installed when we improved the drainage on Cliff Avenue. We do support this, and there'll be this is tonight is to set the hearing.
Thanks, Mark.
Move to set the hearing Tuesday, February 11th, 2014 at 7 o'clock.
Second, Intiman.
Counselor Anderson Jr. has made that motion, seconded by Counselor Intiman. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Intiman?
Yes.
Urbanbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Counselor Staggers, would you mind introducing these group of fine students over here to the corner?
Yeah, I'm glad to introduce a number of my students from my state and local government class. And they're here, very eager to learn a lot about city government.
Thank you. Would you guys just wave to the crowds? Thank you
a
very
short
much. Welcome.
meeting.
Nice to be here.
It's a short meeting, Counselor Staggers. Do they get full credit for this?
Yeah, they're still getting extra credit because it was so cold out coming here. So just for that, they deserve some credit.
Council, any more discussion?
Move to adjourn, Anderson.
Second, Rolfing.
There's been a motion to adjourn this meeting, and it has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Sioux Falls, make it a great night.